Welcome to Talentless, the podcast that's all HR, all talent, and zero fluff, hosted by industry talent leaders Desiree Goldey and Ashley King, and made for recruiters who think of talent outside of the box. They're here to dig into the heart of what makes workplaces tick and sometimes blow up. They are not afraid to get into the messy, the meaningful, and the downright motivating. So buckle up, because they're here to make you the best in the business. Now, let's get to work.
Oh my gosh, Ashley, this is one of my topics. I don't know if I'm in love with or I hate it. It's the sourcing for those niche hires, those darn purple squirrels. I'm excited for
Mm, every recruiter's favorite animal.
It's the worst. The worst.
It's the worst.
We talk about this all the time, how I have a thing about that. I'm so bad at sourcing. I'm really great for life
Really?
cycle. I am. I'm a really awesome full life cycle recruiter, but
Oh, I love source. To me, yeah, no, that's my bread and butter. To me, that's what separates the women from the
I don't
bibis.
disagree. A really good sourcer is worth its weight in gold. I'm telling you, I can't. When I have team members that are really good sourcers, it makes my life so much easier because for me, I do not want to search through 7 trillion profiles to get to that one engineer who has some rando software. So that's not my favorite thing to do, but I know you love it.
Oh,
I know you love it. Let's back up though. What do you consider a niche hire?
yeah, so great question. So, y'all, we are talking about purple squirrels today. And for those who don't know what that special animal is, just like Desiree said, this is for niche hires. So, what is a niche hire? How does it happen? What does it produce as far as actions that need be taken by a recruiter? Everything that we're going to dive in today. So, first, let's start with what makes a role niche? What makes it acute, if you will, as far as skill set goes. And to be quite honest, that's exactly what it is. There are certain things that can make it niche. It could be the skill set of the role, it could be the specific technologies of the role, it could be even the location, maybe where the location is. Not a lot of people have done this before. I don't know if people remember in 2020 whenever we went all remote and all these companies started hiring all over the place, and tons of people were trying to hire software engineers out of Kentucky and Georgia and all these places that have never been accustomed to Silicon Valley and never have had those opportunities before. So things like that, to find a person in those areas at that time, that would have been kind of niche due to the location. So I would say there's quite a few things that can impact it, but essentially it means the talent pool is small. The people with the skills to do this isn't a large number. Supply is low, demand is high, and that's pretty much what a niche role is.
I have a client right now that I'm working on who is the location of the meat packing plant, by the way,
Sweet.
is in Rowena, Texas. I mean, it doesn't get
I
smaller
live in
than
Texas. I don't even know where that is.
Exactly. It's 200 people in the whole city. Talking about niche. It's trying to find, I don't know even what it's trying to find, but it's like a purple squirrel. It is really, really difficult to find people who want to either move there, be there. So that's when I think of niche, I think of things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be engineering or go to market, but it could be anything. There's a ton of different recruiters out there, so I don't want to leave anybody out, in hospitality and
Yep.
meat packing and all of plants, manufacturing, all these other things. And there could be niche roles in any industry, in any sector. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I actually, before we started recording, I was looking up I tried to find the most niche job in the world. There's no direct answer. I wanted them to be like, there's only 2 of these people on the whole planet. But just to give some ideas of things that are not just software engineers. So a globe maker. So someone who makes the world globes.
Huh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think so too. You could be a pet food taster. So they do have humans try the pet food as well.
Blech.
Yeah, grody. The other one, and this one's kind of interesting and relatively new, I would say, the mermaids. You know how they hire the mermaids at the pools?
Yes. I don't think that's so niche though. If you live in Florida, it's
I
not
think,
that niche. Or
yeah.
Vegas.
So they were saying if you live in California and you're a mermaid, you make $6,000 an appearance for every party.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say it's definitely not as niche, but if you would have told someone, in 2022, hey, I'm a mermaid, people would be like, what? A few other ones that were kind of cool. You can do professional bed rester. So NASA needs people to lie in bed for up to 70 days as part of the agency's bed rest studies, which mimic how the body adapts to weightlessness in space.
I want that job. I just want to lay around and get paid. That's what I want to do with my life.
And look at the qualifications for this, right? So let's do a skills-based approach.
Okay, let's
So they
go.
need you to sleep for 70 days. Like, got it. Done. I could do that easy. Another one, and the last one that I thought was kind of cool, is a food stylist. So whenever everybody makes menus for their restaurant and they have to have all those cute pictures, there's actually someone who styles that food.
Yeah, I used to work in hospitality, and yes, there was people that took those pretty pictures, and food photography is a whole different
Isn't
monster, believe
it?
it or not. It's a whole
I
different
know.
thing. Like, it's a really big deal.
I was watching, they were like, to get the bun to shine, you put hairspray,
Yeah,
and maple syrup
yeah,
is
it's so
actually
cool.
like some motor oil.
Yes. Well, yeah, it's not even
Yeah,
maple syrup. It's, like, super
that is
cool.
cool.
It's super cool. It's a cool job, though, too, to me. And plus it's
Yeah.
creative. It's creative. Yeah, those are
Did
cool
you ever
ones.
have a niche job that you wanted? I had one growing up, but I'm curious if you had one where it was like, I've never heard anyone else ever say they want to do this.
Oh, when I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a black mafia queen, so I don't
I
know
think
if
you're pretty
that
close. Like, I think we're getting there.
that is what I wanted to
Yeah,
be as a kindergartner, so that should tell you why my trajectory in life
it
is the
makes
way
perfect
it is,
sense.
but yeah, that would be my niche role. No, I didn't really have one. I always said, like, once I grew up a little bit, I really was, like, pretty much steady on the path, except I always wanted to be a
Me
wedding planner.
too.
But I don't think that's a niche. I don't think that's a niche role.
That was what I was in career day for 4th grade. I literally just wrote that on a comment too because like everyone was doing all these weird and the Wedding Planner movie with Jennifer Lopez had just come out and I was like, "Oh, listen,
Yes.
listen, that's me. Like I've got to do this. I've got to be a wedding planner." So I loved that. I will say whenever I was like going through my like emo stages, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna be the one who picks music for the movies." And like whenever it's a scene of like the rain dropping, I was like, I could do like playing My Chemical
Yes.
Romance in the background, like, yes, yes, I could do this. So that was probably the most niche job because I've never heard anyone else be like, I want to pick music for movies. But it's because people don't think about it, but it is a cool
Well, there's
job.
a job
So
for everything, right? And I think sometimes we forget that. Especially when you're in recruiting, you get thrown these jobs and you're like, somebody actually does this for a living and you have to go find it. That's,
yeah.
that's
What's the weirdest one you've had to recruit for? Do you remember
right
by any
now
chance?
it's probably where I'm at. I'm hiring for deboners at a meat packing plant. Those are like
Cool.
it's unbelievably hard to find someone who wants to do that job and
Yeah.
do it for and it's not bad pay. It's interesting to me the jobs that exist at things we don't really think of. I don't know. I'm always the
Yeah.
person they give the purple squirrels to though because I will because I'm so determined
Oh yeah.
to achieve goal that I will find it. If I have to like search for hours and do all the sourcing I don't love to do, I will find that person.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do think it takes a lot of skill set. What's your biggest one? What's your
I
most
don't know.
niche?
I was trying to actually think about that as I had asked you because I was like, what would be mine? I don't know that I've had a super wonky one. I would say that whenever I was in staffing, like agency is probably whenever I would get the most random things. And there was one that like no one had had success with for years. And it was a technology called Tririga. And it was basically like it building operation technology. So like if your lights are out or if the trash hasn't been taken out, like it updates everything and stuff like that. Like 10
Right.
people in the world had this skill set. And so people were like, no one is getting a hold of these people. They won't answer because they're so in demand. Why? And so there were like 3 people that were in that set of like 30 people that I was relentlessly reaching. I
Right.
mean, just sending them pictures of dogs. Like, how you doing today, man? I'm still here. Like, I'm still knocking at the door.
I'm
I'm
still
still knocking. And
knocking.
you know what's that? I remember these people's names and I see them on my LinkedIn all the time because we became buds. And I will never forget when we're the like director of account executives came in to the office and was like, "Who is talking to Mark? Blah blah blah." I'm not going to say the rest of his name. And I was like, "Me?" And they were like, "ExxonMobil has been trying to get him for 12 years." And she's like, "How'd you get him on the phone?" And it was like, and I had just started. I was only there for like maybe a few months at that point. So anyway, so it was a really cool. It was the first time I ever felt the win of like persistence in recruiting, where I was like, hell yeah, this pays off. And it was the first time that really relationship building, like long
Yes.
term, because
Yeah.
there comes a point where, like I said, you're
Yes.
like, I'm not leaving. Could you kindly
Right.
have a conversation with me?
Yeah, we're going to go into this a little bit more, but relationship building and recruiting is like the lost art to me
It is.
anymore. Like, I think, recruiting used to be done on note cards back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, and you had like a Rolodex of people, right? And so,
Yes.
the evolution has gotten us farther and farther away from that. And I think it's the piece that's missing. My candidates, I'm going to, this sounds egotistical, but actually have a relationship with me and love me usually, because I make sure that I'm asking about their day and how things are going and checking in with them and doing all of those things. And that relationship piece, especially for these purple squirrels, where all it does is take persistence. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's till they're finally unhappy where they're at, or they're ready to make
Yeah.
the move. That is so key. It's like the clutch moment because you've built that relationship with them over time. But I think you and I agree that the intake for these things is probably the most important for these purple squirrels. Would you agree with that? Or
I would say so. The intake is super important for purple squirrels. I also think, and to kind of just chime in on what you were saying, the
yeah,
relationship building is single-handedly one of the best strategies that you can have for purple squirrels. Why? Because after all those years of talking to Mark, anytime he had someone that was anywhere near that skill set that was looking for a job, they were sent to me immediately, because he was and still is a very large person in that community. So it's those things where if you can make those relationships, if you can do that, it will carry you for quite some time. Now, to answer your question, who should you be making those relationships with? Well,
who
now
do you think?
that's going to be determined by your intake, which is what, you were just mentioning, is what are the questions that we ask to really drive
Yeah,
out
yeah.
the information that we need in order to be able to source these niche hires, in order to verify their experience and qualify them for this position and have that conversation, as well as assessment. It is going to build everything that you need to know about the candidate, and how well you do this exercise determines how applicable your candidate pool will be to the role that you are trying to fill.
I think we talked about this in episode 2, I believe. But for me, one of the reasons I see people fail and my team members fail over and over and over again is bad intakes and not asking the right questions, right?
Yeah.
And it is the constant struggle to develop these intake sheets for people, because there's no real standard way right now, I think, in the community. Everybody, every company, every organization has a different method.
This episode is brought to you by DEI Labs, re-educating corporate America with immersive, data-driven DEI training for HR and hiring pros. Ready to shift systems and spark real change? Visit DEI-labs.com to get started. Need a resume that actually works? Resume Writing is a female-owned team of recruiting pros helping job seekers land the roles they deserve. Get expert help at resumewriting.com.
A recruiter has their own style as well, unless there's a standardized intake at your company, which is to me rare, right?
Mm.
You're developing your own. So what goes on yours? What kind of questions go on yours, Ashley?
Yeah, great question. So at DEI Labs, we actually went ahead and kind of made a intake library, if you will. So we have like our gold standard form that hits all of those basic questions, everything that you need for the logistics and stuff like that, location, pay, travel, whatever those questions are that you need to hit with the manager, and make sure that you cover all of your bases. And so that's kind of our gold standard form. The other thing that we do, and that we specifically have managers do, that I think is rare from any other consulting or even corporate agency. We actually have them do two different analyses on their job. One is called a haystack analysis and the other is called a task analysis. Is essentially knowledge, skills, abilities, and competencies. Each one has its own unique description as to what that means, and we essentially ask the managers to provide us with that information along with a task analysis, which goes over each skill and task of the role. We do have them available on our site at dei-labs.com. And this isn't an ad, by the way. This is just to say if you are really hurting in this area and are like, I need assistance with knowing what to ask, my manager's not able to help me, my HRBPs aren't really giving me this, I have nowhere to go, what should I do? Then this is the stuff for you. But essentially, these two analyses, they're going to give you the exact skill sets that you need to be looking for. And the reason that we love these analyses is because the way that we've requested the manager to articulate this, because many managers will be like, I need a software engineer who can do Python, XYZ, this and that. And you have this very basic conversation about it, because intake calls are usually 30 minutes. We don't usually get to take a whole hour of a manager's time. In those 30 minutes, what we found is what we're getting from them isn't the layers that it needs to be. And managers and recruiters aren't using that 30-minute wisely. Like, they're asking questions that are already on the job description, like things like that. This time is to be intuitive with the manager and get a glimpse into their brain of how to best do this. So some things that I ask with the manager once we have those two analyses done is like, okay, where would people with these skills be found? Like, where would you look for them? Because use your managers always. I don't think recruiters do this enough. Your managers are professionals in that field, in that community.
Right. They have community.
They
right?
know people.
They know people.
Exactly. Like, I can't tell you how many times people are like talking about HR stuff and I'm just like, I know like 50 HR, like, who do you need? Like, what
Right.
do you need to know?
Right.
It's no different. Like, and especially if they're a seasoned professional that's doing continuing education, that's trying to find ways to better themselves professionally, like, they're going to know where this talent is housed and how to find them. And if they don't, so let's say maybe they're managing this role, but it's not the most connected, like it's super SME, it's super niche, so it's just a little bit adjacent. They could at least lead you somewhere that will lead you somewhere else.
You know what's so funny to me is that recruiters are always talking about use your network to get a job, use your network, but then we don't use the resources we have within inside of our own organizations to help us fill jobs.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you use that hiring manager? You're not a software engineer, you're a recruiter.
Correct.
Where would I look for this person is, to me, the most obvious question, but I think it most likely is not being asked on 90% of an intake call.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would even say, just to give an example to kind of circle back, the reason that I found that gentleman for the Tririga skill set is because one of the managers mentioned that this was whenever LinkedIn just came out with community pages. There was a Tririga engineers networking page on LinkedIn. I don't know that there's still community pages if that's their names now, but that's not the point. The point is that is where this person was like, oh, that's how I meet a lot of people. This was before they verified what you did and made you go through the approval process to join the community. But I had joined it. Back then, it was kind of a rising technology, so a lot was changing. So community is how they found solutions as well as professionals. And so to be able to be dropped into that.
Yeah, they call it groups now, but it's still very similar, right? I when I was doing healthcare, because to me, healthcare is another type of recruiting to me is super difficult.
Yeah.
I joined a ton of like nursing groups, nurses groups, healthcare groups, because it was impossible to find these people with these very niche things. Because most physicians aren't sitting on LinkedIn.
No.
Right. So, so it's like you can't use LinkedIn. LinkedIn can't be your only source recruiting with these type of roles.
Yeah.
It can't be. You have to sometimes get off of LinkedIn. So I don't want to get off the intake though, because we stopped at kind of that being your most important questions up top about where would you go. What other kind of questions do you think should be on there?
Yeah, so I think something that is not used enough is competitors. I want to know where our manager thinks that this talent is housed within other competitors, what they think those orgs would be that are maybe paying relevant to us as well, to where the talent is easily swipeable. And I am a firm believer, people might have opinions about this, I'm all for poaching. I'm sorry. But if we have a better job and it's going to better their life and it is a legitimate better opportunity, I'm not talking about I just need to fill. And so I'm going to bring someone over here to fill it and not caring about the outcome or the concern of the human that is the candidate. I'm talking about you genuinely have a better opportunity. Take them. Get them. That is the only way to make other employers.
I don't know that people are going to have a problem with it. I mean, recruiting is recruiting. So
Okay.
they work. Not everybody's unemployed, so they have to work somewhere, right? So I don't think
Yeah.
I think competitors is a great place to start because it actually makes your job easier because they're probably doing the same exact job or something adjacent
Yeah.
to that job for a different organization. I don't think people, and if they do, I think they're probably it's a little too organization heavy to me to say that you would care about poaching from another place. Now, if you've been told not to poach from that place and that place is off limits, yes, understood, got it. And I agree with you. Like the human side of recruiting needs to be that if your job actually sucks, what that you want to like poach somebody for, please don't do that. Right? If they're super happy, like don't try to make them take less money or change their environment. If you know your culture's toxic or something like that, please leave the humans alone that are in that space. But
Oh, I can't express that enough.
I do think poaching is a legitimate sourcing strategy. No holds barred to me.
Yeah. I
No.
I honestly think, and talent people, I need you to start thinking like this too. We are in the space of betterment. We are in the space of improving people's livelihoods. And if your job isn't going to do that for this individual, please do not offer them that job. If I could give a quick story, which this is a podcast, so thank you for allowing that. But I know people are like, "What? I didn't want to," and it's like, too bad.
Yeah, we can just tell random stories on here. That's the beauty of this thing.
I had just graduated school, had gotten my first job out of college, and I had a recruiter reach out to me for a big place in Houston that I was just so excited I got reached out to. They were going to offer me a job that was 20K more. They had an on-site gym. They paid for all of our meals. They gave us all of these extra stipends. Just so much cool stuff that was all in the office. That's key. I was so excited. I got there and it was the worst company I ever worked for. They would make you do illegal things. They were racist, they were sexist, they were ageist. I mean, it was blatant. I was specifically told not to do people over a certain age. I was specifically told to avoid certain schools because those schools are more diverse than others, or they're historically Black colleges and things like that. And so, and I mean, and this was all within the first 2 weeks of me working there that they've made these demands. So they were vocal.
Sounds awful.
It was absolutely horrendous. And every single day that I worked there, I cried, no joke. Because here's the thing, talent isn't like another job. Like if you hate your company's culture, but all you're doing is software engineering, you can do that without feeling like you're harming someone's livelihood. It is
Right.
hard to continue recruiting whenever you know you're recruiting for the devil. And that, like, it's a hard sell. And that is
It is.
something that I feel recruiters, they have to draw a line in the sand. Am I ethically based in only bringing in and filling roles for people that this is going to enrich their lives and give them, improvement? Or am I just here for a fill and I don't really care about the outcomes? Because what happened is the recruiter that had reached out to me, I asked her and I said, why on earth would you pull me from a job where I was making decent money, having an okay time? You even asked me how the culture was, and I said I enjoyed it and stuff like that. And she looked me straight in the face and she said, I was tired of being in hell alone. And
Oh,
yes, like that was, and I have
my
never, this has
gosh.
probably been 10, 11 years now. I have never forgotten where we were standing, who was around. Like I can picture everything. And I remember just feeling my whole body sink and my heart dropped to my butt. And I was just like, this is never going to end. I cannot do this. Every single day that I have to try to convince someone to like this place, I am dying. So I know this doesn't have to do with niche jobs, but what I'm saying is when it comes to niche jobs, you will feel this infliction to get the fill because it is so niche. It's been open so long. It is so much work.
Right.
And I am encouraging you to still stay holding the line. If this is not going to benefit that human, don't convince them just because it is your business that you're working for right now. Like, that is not the remedy. That is not the move. And I know a lot of recruiters do it. I'm hoping that if you're a listener, you are not one of those. Okay. So back to the niche roles and the things that matter the most.
But that was a really good segue. I mean, listen, I think the story was very poignant, and I think we developed this cast to talk about how to make recruiting better and talent better. And you can't say you want to do that and not talk about the responsibility that recruiters have. I find that we digressed a little because I think it's still on topic. And I think we'll probably talk about it over and over in many episodes about the responsibilities. I love it. So back to niche roles.
Back to niche roles. So the other thing that I would say that you can really glean from your manager too, and this is pretty important, all companies have different job titles. At first, it was almost actually a strategy. I would have said around 2018. Companies were like, I don't want to name our recruiters because recruiters are poaching them. So we're going to name them employee experience managers. Today, someone on LinkedIn literally wrote out 14 different titles: talent acquisition specialist, candidate success manager, employee journey consultant.
I like that one.
I mean, they're snazzy. They're getting jazzy with it over here. But what's important about this is the reason you need to ask your manager those questions, what other titles could they be under, is because if you are not already doing a skills-based approach with your sourcing and you are first writing in director of technology, whatever it is that you're typing in that could have 50,000 different other titles, you are already cutting yourself off 60% of the way.
Agree.
100% without question.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
When I source on LinkedIn, I don't even put titles because to me it's
I do
a
not.
waste of time.
So I am one of the hybrids. Started recruiting whenever they used to do old school Boolean style strings. So you go to Google and you type that stuff in.
Right.
Never.
Yes.
Never would I ever use a title because it's their skill set I need. I don't care what their title.
It was funny yesterday. I was talking to someone and they told me they didn't know how to do Boolean. And this is a recruiter. I mean, it's a fairly decade old recruiter.
There's a cutoff.
Cutoff is because how do you not know how to do Boolean?
Well, I do find that there are people who don't know how to do the authentic, the through Google, they don't.
Right.
Now they know how to go into Hire Easy and they know how to go into LinkedIn and put in the little keywords and stuff like that.
Yeah, or the ands and the ors.
But if
and
we're
stuff
having
like
to
that.
have them do some parentheses, some PIMDOS looking stuff,
yes, some X-ray.
Yeah, it's game over. What is this? So I will say, to me, it's like cursive. It's like this hidden little language that we can do. Yeah, and
that is
maybe
such a good analogy.
Yes, maybe this skill will bring me something later because I know how to do it and other people don't.
My cursive will bring me millions is what I'm hoping for.
I think about it all in my wedding planning that I'm doing. I want to write the invite so I could do all the cursive, all the things. That's my jam. I go into people's office and just write in cursive whenever I work in an office.
That's awesome. But this goes to the sourcing strategies for some of this stuff. And please tell me we need to circle back to the intake. For me, sourcing, I do know how to do Boolean, but for me is probably the worst part of my day. I love talking to people. I love the interviews. That's my jam. I could talk to people all day long. It's why sales recruiting is part of my happy place because they'll talk forever, right? So, for me, that is my favorite type of recruiting, but sourcing is not. And so LinkedIn, is my go-to, Hire Easy, things like that, because they're easy for me to source from. Boolean's another one. And we talked about the community groups. Is there any other sourcing strategies you think we haven't mentioned that maybe, should be on people's radar?
Yeah. So, there's so many, y'all. So I know we talked about competitors, programs, as far as universities, colleges, trade schools. Anytime you have something that could be a niche role, here's what I tell my recruiters, especially when their managers are we got to fill this right now. you need to have two strategies every time you're working with a manager. You need a long-term and a short-term. So your long-term needs to be that you're telling them you're working on seeing what colleges, what schools, what in this community has pockets of people that would house this talent that we could start nurturing long-term to always have a resolution and not have the issues that we're having right now. That's strategy number one, our long-term. Our short-term is what's going to get that manager results right now to get you off your back, because that long-term isn't going to bring you any fruit for a while. So you have to have a solution for that. That is where your instant sourcing strategies come in. There should never be a time that you go into a role and you don't have these two strategies. Why? Because that job will be open another time. Unless it's contract based, that's something a little different. But if these
Right.
are perm roles at the organization, things like that, invest, because you're already here doing it anyway. And to be honest, a lot of those long-term investments that I made, one, they generally do pay off. And I'm not joking, they legitimately do. But two, the other thing that I think is important is sometimes getting them set up. I got candidates right then. There were lots of people whenever you work at colleges and you're working with their director of career services, and they say, hey, I have like 5 alumni people that have been in the market, or have been working for over 10 years. Can I send you their resume? Because they reached out back to us. So there have been times where you can use alumni resource groups to tap as well. The main things that you're looking for is just pockets of the skill. The reason that I talk about pockets of the skill is because there are certain jobs. So for instance, we worked with a client, you and I, where we had to hire someone who had a lot of experience in doing AutoCAD and a few specific things within the technology. Well, then what we realized is, because they were tapped out, they were like, we have no candidates. There's no way, we can't find anyone. So
I remember this role.
so we could have gone and used the title that they gave us, and we would have found that all those people were in the system, they were tapped, whatever. But what we found is that if we just analyzed the skill set, which was that AutoCAD piece and then a few of the other things that it had in there, we found people who were interior designers that had done this. We found people that were, had worked in lighting that had done this, or had done, it wasn't always just this one sector that they had always looked in, and they never thought, I wonder who else uses this technology that isn't in this industry. I wonder who else is building these skills that isn't just working at a plant site. And once we were able to show that, hey, they do actually learn these skills, they interviewed the candidates and they told us these were the best interviews they have ever had, ever. And that man worked there 25 years, and these were the best interviews. People he had never even considered, and would probably hear their job title and say, that's silly. You can't, interior designer, bye. But here's the thing, they were doing that anyway. They were doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the thing about titles.
It's the thing about titles.
I make up my title every day.
I do too.
Like,
I changed mine.
I take over the world, president. Today I just make it up because it doesn't really matter to me. And I think it's starting to matter less and less to a lot of people, especially as, Gen Z comes up. But I do think as Gen Z and millennials and are taking over the world, some of this stuff becomes less and less important, but it also becomes less and less important when you're sourcing because these people could be anywhere, had that skill and done these things, and they're at the company and they changed the title to do exactly what they did in recruiting, right? To hide the recruiters from people. They could be doing the same kind of concept. I really stay away from titles because it just
I do too.
No purpose to me at all. The skills-based approach to me has always been the way to go. What does this person need to be doing on a day-to-day basis? What skills do they need? What tools do they need to know to be able to do that job?
Hello, this is Michael Vandervoort from the Drive Through HR podcast, where we discuss ideas, trends, and activities that impact HR, talent, HR technology in the workplace. Our focus is on expanding knowledge and igniting curiosity as we hear directly from people who are shaping the future of the HR industry. Join us.
And if I can find those things, it always works out.
Yeah. And so that's why I love the KSAC and the task analysis. And here's why. This template is to really accentuate how a manager articulates what it is that they need. I had a VP of enterprise sales that I was hiring for. And every time I asked them for the skill set, I need someone who can close. I need someone who can close, who can get these things over the line. I need someone who can close, right? That's great. Excellent. But the thing is, we gave them all their candidates, everything like that. None of them are a fit. None of them are going to work. Okay, what are we missing then? Because we're giving you statistically, based on data, these closers, they're doing the same deal size, same sales cycle, they're selling to the same audience at the same level, just all these different factors that align. So what is it that we're missing? Well, we had them do the KSAC and the task analysis. And what we were finding was an emphasis on things that were actually not important because of how the company was structured. So this VP had actually come from a very large company, kind of brought that same style with them. And so to them, at that point, their biggest struggle was getting people to close. But that also infers that you had a lot of opportunities open and weren't able to close them. Our issue at our business was just getting them opened, right? So
Right.
we're worrying
The
about
opportunity itself.
yeah, we're worrying about instances that haven't actually occurred here as a data point, but somewhere else. So we have them do the task analysis. And one of the things that we put on there that I think is really what makes it spectacular, we ask them how important it is and how often it is used. So just to walk us through this examples, if you have sales, our VP says it's the most important thing closed. So that gets a 10 out of 10, right? It's the most important. But how often did these managers actually close? How often were these salespeople having to close based off of sales cycle, the duration, the size?
Right.
And it was around maybe 6 times a year. And with the way our organization was set up, there was never a time that they were closing that the CEO, because it's a small startup, that the CEO and the VP of sales would not have been on the call. So
Right.
not only the framing of how the sales process is different to where those issues over there are not necessarily these, but additionally, the issue that, the closing thing altogether, the salesperson would be there, but they wouldn't actually, the CEO is going to come in and close it. We're a small startup. That's just the way it is. He's just going to do that. It was something interesting that we found. Managers sometimes evaluate things based off of importance, not necessarily based off of often. Another example I could give is recruiters. If you say, what does a recruiter do? Oh, I give people jobs. People will be like, I love that. I would love to improve someone's life. I would love to do all these things. What does a recruiter really do? Spend about 30 hours a week on a phone. If you can't actually do what's required in the often space of the 30 hours on the phone in dialogue, then you don't get to participate in the 2 hours of giving offers, which is what the job is known for, right? It's just something that whenever we really look at dissecting the skills that we have, we had to find better ways to help managers articulate what it is that they're really looking for,
Right.
because they could have a perception from a previous employer. They could have a perception of how all of sales works because maybe that was the only time they were managers. So they're like, it must be everywhere. So we could be doing things that really, whenever we dig into it, so unnecessary. That could be a way to dissolve the nicheness of the role, is by diving in with the manager, doing that task analysis, having your KSAC analysis, and being able to be like, okay, this is what you're really looking for, and this is the experience we'll go find.
I just wanted to clarify for people, this is a proprietary thing, but the knowledge behind it of what you're actually looking for is just simple recruiting, right? Really good recruiting. But the structure of how you do this can be found at DEI Labs. I love that you use the recruiter analogy because I think people will completely understand that. People think that recruiting, the job of recruiting is looking at resumes and getting people a job and making offers, right? And there's so much in between there that we do on a weekly basis. That's how you need to think about when you're doing these purple squirrels and these niche roles, because what the hiring manager usually is saying to you in one out of their mouth, it's usually not what that person is doing on a day-to-day basis every single day. And if they do have to go through this exercise of actually identifying this, the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, and the competencies of what actually is needed for the role, it's probably different. And so I love this approach. I loved it when we worked together and it was great.
And it also, just to add this, one, it brings in Bible, right? Like it gives us a true north. Like it tells us all, like, this is skeleton, this is what we're going to attend to.
Very much.
But the other thing, it's a way to hold us all accountable. Like I can't tell you how many times managers changed for all the way through. And ultimately that's fine. I'm an extension of them. I can flex with you. That's cool. But what I do want is whenever your manager comes and says, why haven't we hired anyone? It's been 4 weeks, for you to reference that all these different things have taken place and changed due to you, not due to us, and we've adhered to it, which has now created a lag. Things like that, where it's like, managers, do your thing, but also like, let's, think about all the things as well.
Think about all the things as well. Okay, so this is the segment, everybody. This is stuff you didn't know before. A segment we have in all of our episodes discusses the psychological side of the topics we're discussing. Today, we've been talking about niche hires. So today we're going to talk about understanding data and accurate forecasting for hiring and some other things. Ashley, go to it.
All right, talent folks, let's talk about some data. So a lot of people in talent are usually a part of the process where the headcount has been given. We will be doing XYZ hires, this and that. Oftentimes they're not actually involved. I mean, the head of talent, perhaps, but not usually your line level recruiters are involved with what it takes to create a headcount and the data that is needed for that. So I thought we could actually dive into that just a little bit for stuff you didn't know today, because it is something that I think creates an interesting outline that actually helps you as a recruiter understand whenever roles are being put on hold. Why is that? How did that happen? And how can we create prevention for that happening again? So that way we aren't stuck in these motions of having false open jobs or having niche jobs that we're spending our time on that perhaps don't end up actually becoming real, and so on. So interestingly enough, whenever it comes to planning headcount, you kind of have like two different sectors. So you'll have revenue creating roles, which basically means that whenever they start in seat, their role should pay for itself after a certain amount of time. Ideally, if we have salespeople and let's say they're on ramp for 90 days, after that remainder they hit quota, we would estimate that by 180 days, so that's double ramp, they should be able to pay for the position for the startup cost that it costs to hire them. And so that's the ideal with revenue. So if you are a go-to-market recruiter, you might actually have a different process of how you hire people and get those headcounts than other groups, because other groups are a cost center. So we have to have already established that profit, versus you could continue hiring revenue people without, it wouldn't be smart, I wouldn't do it, but many people do it without actually having those profits there as well. So something that's just interesting whenever you look at the flow, because you may see engineering's jobs all got put on pause. Why do I still have all of these account executives? What's happening? That's actually a portion of it. It's because they're revenue generating, and it only takes, companies have different amount of times. I said 180. It could be very different depending on the org. That was just an example, but something to think on whenever you're having that.
I'm Desiree.
And I'm Ashley. And thanks for listening to Talentless, where we keep it real in the world of HR.
If you loved what you heard, don't forget to hit subscribe and give us a follow on Blue Sky, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're here to keep your feed packed with everything you need to level up in recruitment and HR.
And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And hey, don't miss out. Sign up for our newsletter for fresh insights and follow us on socials to stay connected with both Ashley and me.
Thanks again for joining us on Talentless. Until next time, we'll see you then.